Welcome to the Commissioner meeting at 1 o'clock on the 20th. We'll start with Brian and go around the room and just introduce yourself.
Teton County Planner, Brian Colesworthy.
Paula Giaconetti, Clerk and Recorder.
Ken Bassman, EMS, Choteau Ambulance Crew Chief.
Joe Delville, Commissioner.
Dick Snellman, Commissioner.
Deb Coverdale.
Carlson, Commissioner.
Deb Coverdale, Teton County EMS and DES.
Colleen Campbell, Dutton EMS Crew Chief.
Sandra Hopkins, Morris Line Surveys.
And welcome. First on the agenda is minutes from May 2nd and June 6th for approval.
I'll move to approve those.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Road encroachments, none at this particular time. Next on the agenda is Beck subdivision. Brian?
Sander.
Sander.
This is just final plat application for Allen Beck subdivision. We've met the conditions of approval. Mr. Staley has approved the subdivision and signed off on the examining land surveyor review, so we are just looking for commission action to approve the final plat application.
Do you have the forms or whatever? Or?
It's all been submitted to the county at this point.
I have nothing. Nothing's been submitted to me. I think that we might have to go ask Joe Coble where that is. But I do know that, actually I don't know. I'm not in the loop on this one.
Okay.
I did receive an invoice, but that's all I know.
I guess if we don't have a checklist or the plats.
No,
It's a
I
challenge.
just saw an email between yourselves and Joe Coble at some point, but there was no documentation submitted, so I don't have anything.
Okay, we should probably get a hold of Joe then.
Well, how this usually works, Sandra, is we take the recommendation from the planner when he tells us everything's ready to roll.
Correct.
So if we don't have that information, I'm gonna move to table it.
I think that would be
I'll
appropriate.
second that.
Okay, our next meeting will be the 18th, I believe it is, of July.
Okay,
So,
I'm gonna step out and hop on the phone here.
okay, so at this point, it's been moved to table this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, budget amendments. And we have Resolution 2024-14. And
I would move to approve resolution 2024-14.
I'll second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve 2024-14. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next resolution is 2024-15, Barca junk vehicle.
I would move to approve 2024-15.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is EMS discussion. And I don't know which one of the three want to start.
Well, I'll start. Ken came in and dropped in to visit with us, and I told him this is significant public interest, and I thought we should have the conversation at our meeting, just so it's recorded and we're all on the same page. And I think most of the conversation was about training needs
Correct.
and
And
not burning
coverage.
our people out. So with that, we can all sit around and brainstorm.
And bodies.
So 2 points of discussion. One is around coverage, and second is around training. First of all, on coverage, we're looking for help on transfers on weekends. We transfer patients who have gone to BTMC, need additional assessment and treatment, typically at benefits, sometimes Great Falls Clinic. So we get paged out, and it's about a 3-hour effort, 2 hours of driving, one each way, and half an hour on each end. So it's a long trip. Right now, I am pretty much the sole EMT who is covering all the transfers on weekends. It's getting a little old. In the month of May, I was on call all but about 30 hours over 2 15-minute segments. And there's some other things I want to do. So I think we've come up with a plan among Deb and the crew chiefs where we can help me out a little bit with training, with coverage on transfers on the weekends, where each of the services would pick a weekend and provide 1 or 2 people. They would be on call for probably the 48 hours, maybe starting at 6 Friday night. We work out the details. And if they took the whole 48 hours, they would get $25 per 12-hour shift. So they could make $200. They could make $100 a person for being on call and available, which would mean if BTMC paged us out that they couldn't be in Great Falls, they couldn't be out doing something else, that they would have to respond. So 2 people would cost us $100 over the weekend. We bill for transfers somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500 per transfer. We get loaded miles on the truck. We get the basic BLS fee of around $800. We deliver oxygen. We deliver IV fluid. So somewhere in that $2,000 to $2,500 is what we bill. If I'm not around to do that and no one else covers, then BTMC is going to go to Logan Health or GFIS or Benefice in Great Falls. We then get nothing. So I think the fact that we're spending the $200 allows us to bill something in return, so we probably cover our costs. Last year we did 2 to 3 transfers a week, some on weekends, some happened on the days. But I think financially this is probably doable. It's also good for our crews, because the crews, and particularly in Power and Dutton, don't go on as many calls as Fairfield and we do. So, their experience level probably degrades a little bit over time. But here they've got an opportunity to spend an hour with the patient. And most transfers are pretty straightforward. 95% of them, you're doing vitals, you're administering fluid, giving oxygen. 5% of the time something happens and you want an experienced crew member there. So it's good training for the other services. I said we've talked about it with the crew chiefs, and Power, Dutton, Fairfield are all in favor of it. It's not a matter of Ken personally not getting to go on all the transfers. It's not in my rice bowl, so I'm not trying to say I got to go or Choteau's got to go. But I think in general it's probably a good solution. It's good for me personally. I think financially it's probably good for the county because we can continue to bill for it. It's good with the training that it provides to the additional crews, and it gives them a little extra money. So $100 for a weekend, if they're around anyway, can be a good deal. So that was topic 1.
And that, just to add to that wouldn't be a new thing. We actually did that years ago. So this is just rebringing this around, that saying this worked in the past for us. Then we came up with another solution, and we're back to this, figuring out a way to cover some transfers.
It doesn't sound
from
like
the
there's any
other
downsides to doing it that way.
There really isn't. I think he hit all the points, and I think it's a matter of just, fine-tuning the details of the time and the actual, reimbursement through a stipend to the responders. Sure. So.
And a service wouldn't have to take both slots. If Power wanted to cough up one body and Dutton coughed up a second, that's fine. Both don't have to come from the same service. But there is value in crews working together.
Correct.
So we can work the details. They're not particularly hard.
No, and we do have criteria on who can actually be the ones covering that. So we want to give opportunity to those that are already responding to make that added income, that it's not going to be the people that necessarily don't take any call that come in and just swoop in on the weekend and all of a sudden, get reimbursed for their weekend. So we've all chatted multiple times at our chief meetings that, we'll have a developed criteria on how this takes place.
Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
So when they do respond and they do have a transfer, they get paid though?
Correct.
For those hours that they're on as an EMS.
Correct.
But they'd also receive the, as a bonus.
Yeah, so,
For
so
the
basically it
additional.
was, it would be a
Okay.
stipend per shift, but then yes, if they actually do take a call, they get their added wage.
Okay.
So, yes.
And what I didn't say was that the response time is not necessarily a problem, because we're taking generally stable patients from BTMC. They don't need to leave the hospital right away. So there's time for Power to get here, there's time for Dutton to get here. And frequently, we're not there in Choteau, we're not there for 20 or 25 minutes anyway. And invariably, they're never ready to give them to us. They've got one more thing to do.
That's a hospital,
So-
right?
So the response time is not an issue.
Right.
More on that topic?
No,
Second one is training. I think we need a kind of a county-wide training person. Right now, I'm doing all the EMT classes and all the EMR classes, and it's generally about one each a year. An EMT class is 550 hours of classroom. I spend probably at least that in preparation and follow-up kind of activities. So there's a big time investment, and it would be good to get some help there. The other thing that's happening is we're really, among the 4 or 5 services, inconsistent in how we train our crews. I train mine one way, Colleen does another way, Leon, Christina, they all have their ways of doing it, and we're all competent, but it would be nice if we were consistent across the county, so that if I fill in on a Dutton truck and have a Dutton EMT with me, that we're all acting in exactly the same way.
sure.
There's also annual requirements or biannual requirements for recertification or refreshment. I've done some of those. This year we paid, I think, we had an outside provider come in.
Yeah.
And those are not cheap courses. I think there's an opportunity, if there's space in the budget, to hire someone perhaps part-time, but who could standardize training across all of the services. And if it was someone who was a paramedic, then that person would also be available when he's here or she's here for ALS, advanced life support type services.
I just have a question. How often is the training? I mean, is it once a month? Is it once every 2 weeks? Or
Generally, the classes I have run, we've done them twice a week for 3 to 4 hours, 2 to 3, 4 hours a night.
and that's on the original,
Yes.
Right.
not the updates.
No, that's on the original. We have to get in 150 hours,
Correct.
and we can't run a 4-week class.
The reason for my asking that is there potential? I mean, I don't know, but maybe sharing a trainer with another county?
Or, I'll let you answer that.
I don't know that we would find somebody available, but I think having our own training person would be a better situation so that we are sticking consistent with just our county, and then also having that person available to actually respond with us. So if you start putting together the hours that Teton County gets, we have 5 services. One is a QRU unit, but every month they all have one crew meeting. Fairfield added in a secondary training, so then that's 2. So technically they have 6 nights of training per month.
Okay.
And then on top of that, then the refresher, and the refresher hours have changed a little bit, but it's basically 24 to 48 hours, 48 hours every 2 years to maintain your licensure. So keeping that consistent, that's a significant amount of training that somebody, I think your person would be pretty busy just training our own people. And then we have it set up right now where every crew meeting for the most part is on a different night. Occasionally we'll have a couple conflict, but if we're expecting them or having them attend 6 meetings in a month,
Oh, sure.
and we want them 6 meetings in a month, if they start to go elsewhere, I think that's going to be an issue. Augusta also, I believe, could really benefit, and I would see nothing wrong with working with Augusta. Right now, they kind of fall under our protocols right now, under our medical director, all that kind of stuff, just as it is. We've always just kind of blanketed with Augusta, so I think speaking to Augusta, they would very much want to benefit from a training officer, because I don't necessarily think they get anything. So.
And we had a conversation a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, on getting extra people how is that coming as far as, are all your, calls covered? Do you have enough bodies coming in that?
I would say, Colleen wants to talk on this.
Yeah, I'd like to speak because it kind of goes to coverage and the trainings. If we were to get a person that could cross over and help with coverage plus do the trainings, Dutton, we have 4 responders.
Okay,
3 who run by themselves, 1 who is down with a horse injury for several months probably,
sure.
1 that works in Great Falls. That leaves me. I'm not there. I mean, the one that works in Great Falls is there right now, so we are in service.
Right.
But quite often we have to let Power know we're out of service because I have to go to Great Falls for groceries or I want to go on vacation. Much like Ken, it tends to be the crew chief that fills the position. If we were to have someone that could do the trainings and do some of that crossover coverage, you know, they could get to Dutton. I mean, I'm 13
Right.
miles out of Dutton. If
Right.
I'm on call by myself, it takes me a little bit of time to get there. If we had somebody else that could kind of help with coverage, you know, and granted, Dutton doesn't get that many calls like Fairfield or Choteau, but if we're called, we need to be there.
Yeah, no, and
Yeah.
I agree.
So it would be nice
just-
to have someone to do multiple
But
jobs.
are we getting enough people that are being trained or wanting to
we had
join or?
5, and I think in the last EMT class, of which 1 has gone on and tested. I've got another one who, Greg, he hasn't tested and probably never will at this point. The other 3 I'm not sure about. I had 2 potentials out of Choteau, and I gained 1.
We have a lot of folks on the roster.
Okay,
And there's a big difference between having their name on the roster and actually being available to respond
Okay.
and actually having the desire to respond. So there's a big difference there. A lot of people, they don't have the ability to respond. They're on the roster, they want to participate, maybe they fill another role, maybe they'll pick up a standby here or there for us. There's a significant number of standbys. But they're just not available for a 911 call on a regular basis. So, and there's probably a lot of them that have kind of gone down the road of they've not responded for a significant amount of time, so now they don't feel comfortable responding. So that's where we feel like having a specific, you know, trainer in that would hopefully maybe get those folks back up to feeling comfortable to respond.
the more attention they have and the more practical training, I'm sure they feel more comfortable,
Sure.
so.
And this isn't something that's new. This has been, I've talked to you guys
Yeah,
multiple,
discussions.
you know,
Yeah.
years. There's probably been 4 or 5 years I've brought this to your attention. We've talked about it for probably well over a year at our chiefs meeting and finally just decided we really need to, you know, get the attention and figure out a solution for this.
And being as we have the planner and the grant writer here, have you seen any fundings that are available maybe for an individual like that? Something that would go beyond a year?
So the only thing I've seen so far in grants right now is one for ambulance and equipment, stuff like that, fire trucks and everything else, body cams. There is some available grants for training, but it's to pay for further on training. It's not to pay for a trainer.
Yeah, we missed the opportunity a year or so ago, and I brought that to your guys' attention, that we had the opportunity, there was funding for a employee, but we didn't meet the baseline requirements of the match or whatever to hire somebody, so we couldn't even apply for the grant. So,
Well, and I mean, our concern and your guys' concern too is the COVID monies have gone or are not available. That's why I was just asking if there was a grant maybe that potentially might be had, even if it's part of it, you know.
We can continue to watch for it. Yeah, there has not been nothing like what, and again, like she had mentioned, a lot of times we're on a threshold, we receive too much money for the county, but then we also don't meet this, and a little bit of funding that's there, we just keep missing it because we're just in that weird block.
Sure.
it makes it really hard. And then our matches, we can never get our matches removed because of specific funding and stuff like that.
So, do you have potential cost?
I think that ultimately comes down to us sitting down and looking at the budget and seeing what is available, which we, did a little bit to kind of see where we're at, and also developing a job description for a position that says this is what our needs are and this is what we want, which we do have past job descriptions, because this wouldn't be the first time we have attempted to hire somebody to fill this exact position. So I think that's just a discussion that we need to see where we can go from there, creating this, and then finding somebody that's interested, making it worthwhile, that it's going to be somebody that wants this type of position.
Right.
So.
Not me.
Yeah. I believe just by looking at my budget, I think we have done a very good job of bringing in revenue for our through the EMS. We're an enterprise account. We're pretty well self-sufficient, so I truly believe that there is monies there. We're not going to have to go out and search for monies. We've made it very clear to our crews that part of our revenue is brought in by what they do as far as homework and work on the trucks, proper documentation, allowing us to bill and be paid for it. So I feel like we are sitting in a very good position to hire somebody on. We never know from one year to the next what we're going to have for revenue and what we're going to have for call volume, but if you look in the last 5 years, excluding COVID year, our call volume has increased significantly. So we are bringing in, that's also to the pitfall of our responders, is that instead of responding to 300 calls a year, you're responding to 500 calls a year. So our volume has gone up, but we can't lose the resources we have now as far as personnel, because we have some good quality personnel. We can't lose them, so we've got to figure out a way to ease their growing pains a little bit in the service. And I think for the county as a whole, I think you guys would want our responders trained up so that mistakes aren't made. So I think ultimately that should be, your thought process too, is we got to make sure that we have our responders trained, because otherwise it falls back on the county as far as if there's negligence or something.
We're having this discussion.
We deal with liability issues daily.
Yep.
And none of us who run want to make more per hour for a call. We'd rather see someone who could train us up and keep us current.
Sure.
Rather than get an extra 12 cents an hour or whatever the raise would be. We ought to look at our billing rates too. Is that
right? And I did have that discussion
we had that
with them as
discussion,
far as changing the rates of what we bill. Yes, and I think that goes across the board for most any volunteer that is in EMS. Is not in it to make a living at it. That's not why they're in it. They're in it to help their communities. They're in it because they have a passion for it. So, yes, they need to be compensated, reasonably. But you're right. I think they would much rather be able to just have a little bit of time than money, as far as not running every single call and actually having a weekend off.
Do all of the EMS revenues stay in the EMS accounts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I assumed so, but.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a good question, but yes, they do.
Any other comments?
Well, I guess going forward, I made some notes, so develop a job description, then we need to look at budget options and the fee schedule.
Okay.
And see what we need to do to go forward. So I think it was a good discussion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're on the right track.
Yes,
we-
ma'am.
Ask a question again. It's been at least 5 years since we've restructured the fees.
2020 actually, we
Oh,
did
was
it.
it?
We did. So it was 2017, and then we changed them in 2020. But yeah, I think it's.
Was it before COVID or after COVID?
I think it was January of 2020.
So
So I think it was
just
kind
as
of
it is,
right. And the other thing to keep in mind is expenses increased immensely during COVID. Some of those have gone back down as far as equipment and supplies and stuff like that. But a lot of them, they maintain their value to The distributors at that time, I mean, they're a lot more expensive than they used to be, which is understandable. So I think increasing our rates is something we definitely need to look at.
And a lot of our stuff has a short shelf life.
And it's shorter than it used to
Expires.
be.
Even if we don't use it, we're required by the state to keep it on the ambulance. So we do have to replenish
Yeah, like
quite
the
often.
I think we had that with the EpiPens,
Yeah,
that conversation. They're
yeah.
horribly expensive.
Yes,
and
they
only
are.
last so long.
The last ones, we don't carry necessarily the EpiPens anymore because they're between $400 and $500,
No.
and they had an 18-month shelf life.
I remember that conversation.
So, we changed plans there, but when we first switched over to just the vial of Epi, it was like $3, and now it's probably $25 for the vials.
Whereas a
So,
pen is what, about 400?
yeah, between $400 and $500, yes.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, I think it's worth looking at changing our rates.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad we're having this discussion. We'll go
Thank you.
forward with it. And we appreciate our EMS.
Yeah.
You guys do a heck of a job for the county.
And I guess putting out to the public, if there's anybody that would like to join their group,
We
I'm
do.
sure they would accept it.
We do all the time. We
Yeah.
advertise, but there's just a lack of volunteerism, a lack of devotion to put that kind of time
Yep,
to
the
come
time-
into Choteau,
the time
3
commitment.
months for training or whatever. That's a big commitment for
After you've worked the
people.
whole day.
Well, and
Right.
I always get the comment, I could never do that. And you could do that. You're trained properly to do that. And if you're faced with an emergency situation, would you not rather have a little bit of training than be faced with an emergency situation and have zero training?
Exactly.
So we never know when we're going to be faced with an emergency. So you can do it. You
Yeah.
really can do it. It's not something that you can't do. Nobody wants to necessarily respond to those events sometimes. But if they're trained properly, they can do it and make a difference for people.
Yeah, the training kicks in.
Absolutely.
Well, we also get a lot of people on the big exciting events. When the Gunther burned down, I had 9 Choteau EMTs there. I didn't know I had that many. So they come to the excitement. They don't want the 250-pound guy at night for a lift assist.
Yeah, right.
Very true.
Well,
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
thanks for
thanks.
coming.
Do we need to put a little plan together for the weekends?
Yes, I think that's what we will do at either a chief
That's-
meetings or I'll do that.
yeah.
We'll put together a plan and then we'll bring it back to you and
I think
Take
you've
your
already got
advisement.
our blessing.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think, to do that.
okay. And then as far as that other stuff, I'll work on that, get it, bring it back to you and we'll go from there.
Yep,
okay.
Okay.
sounds good.
Thanks for all the input.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Did you,
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have copies of emails from Mr. Staley, the county subdivision administrator. If I may, I'd like to read this into the record.
okay,
Per Mr. Staley, on June 5th, 2024, hi all. As per section 2-B-2 subsection B of the Teton County subdivision regulations, I reviewed the final plat submittal for conformance to the conditions of preliminary approval. Aside from the attached ELS review notes, that's examining land surveyor, the submittal has been found to meet the COAs, or conditions of approval. Sander, please print a final PDF check print for final review and approval. Thanks, and let me know if any questions. Dan Staley. And we
What
also
date was that
received-
again?
That was June 5th.
Okay.
And we received the final check print from Mr. Staley earlier this week on, 3 days ago, June 17th. So, I did not prepare a staff report for the county. I'm not sure what the most appropriate way to handle this would be. We have conformed to the conditions of approval of the subdivision, and we would be looking for a motion to approve the final plat application.
yeah, I guess from our standpoint, I mean, we
Am I on
have,
that email or am I not on that email?
I do not believe you are.
Okay. So did anybody from the county respond back to that, confirming that we are
Let's see, June 5th. It was put on the agenda. I have,
That was a call to you, correct, Paul?
Yeah, I responded and put them on the agenda.
there are 2 copies there of our correspondence. There's a copy for you for the record. So yeah, agenda for June 20th, 2024, 10 a.m., rather 1 a.m. as it is today. I guess I'm not sure what the next step would be, from my perspective.
I've been sitting at this table for 20 years, and this is how it works.
Mhm.
The planner works with the engineer and works with the surveyor, and then at our meeting, we ask the planner if all the conditions have been met. He says yes or no, and then we take action on it. So I don't know how evidently the system is broken or something, because the way that I work, the way that we have been doing it for 20 years, I ask the planner if all the conditions are met, and then I'll make a motion. But when our planner isn't even aware that the check sheet or whatever, there's been a breakdown somewhere, so.
Unfortunately, that does appear to be the case.
Yeah, so we'll have to work that out between our planner and our engineer evidently.
Right. Yeah, because something's askew from what it used to be. It used to be fairly simple.
So I think my motion to table is still legitimate.
Yep.
We'll have to figure out where the hiccup is, Sandra. And then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Next item on the agenda is MOU with the Acantha. And primarily what this is a ruling that was put out by the state legislature that all county meetings, mainly the health and the
Just those,
commissioners,
just those two.
yeah, need to be recorded for the public. And we've been with the Acantha since before COVID. And instead of us buying extra equipment and those type things, we've discussed having an MOU between the county and the Acantha for the recording, because she does keep that for a year at a time. So everybody has access to it for public information.
Yep, I've talked to Melody and I've talked to Joe Coble, and we'll get it going, but for now it's tabled. I'll
Yep.
move to table it.
Yeah,
Okay.
just so people are aware of
Yep.
why it was brought up. Okay.
We talked about it at the Board of Health.
I need a second for the tabling.
For the table, we need a second, Sam.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to table the MOU till next meeting. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Commissioners' reports?
We put some new treatment on the road going to the dump in Choteau area. It's a new deal we've never tried. So we thought-
Enzyme.
An enzyme. We thought it would be a good test because that road gets a lot of use, and if it comes to fruition with what the salesman is saying, it will preclude washboards coming in for 10 years.
Wow.
So if it works there, we may be trying it around the county on intersections and our perennial washboard heavens that we have all over the county. So we're crossing our fingers. You don't look convinced, Deb.
Well, I'll talk to the applicant.
No comment.
Yeah.
But places like, for example, at the bottom of Coal Hill where it transitions from pavement to gravel, where there's always potholes and washboards.
Yeah.
If this product works like they're telling us, we would like to do that in a lot of spots in the county. And also it works, like for people in the eastern part of the county, you can go into a dirt road and put this on it, and it's supposed to make it to where it doesn't get slippery and slimy when it's wet and it won't let.
Is it the same thing they're saying you can put down on the millings?
No, this is completely,
Because we've heard
completely
something.
different.
Okay.
That's
Interesting. Okay.
So we have our fingers crossed, and I think Steve thought the best test would be the road going to the roll-off site up here in Choteau, because it's just the traffic is continual and the washboards are continual, so
Good.
we're gonna keep our fingers crossed on that. That's about all I got.
You got anything, Sam?
No. I'll know next Tuesday about how soon I can get back to normal again. I've got an appointment with the surgeon on Tuesday morning. So then,
Well,
hopefully they'll let me drive and I can get out of this sling thing.
take your time this time and do it right.
Okay, well, I've been behaving myself really well this time.
Okay.
It didn't work, so I got it done again.
Okay.
Any public comment? Have a public notice, and this was just called into us yesterday from the state driver's license office. They've been here Tuesdays and Fridays, and they've had an upgrade in all their equipment. They figure that most days that they are here, they have 7 to 8 people. They're wanting to go down to just Tuesdays, and with the new equipment, they said they can handle roughly 20 people in their time slot. So they're just going to one day, and it'd be on Tuesday, once a week. And if there's any questions, the gal's name is Bridget Cook. It's 406-438-1966. And this will not start till the 16th of July, to the one day week. So, if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn, and our next meeting will be July 18th.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, see you, Sam.
All right, okay, see you guys.
Yep, bye.
The reason I'm not